Hey, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Draglist Live, where we get to bench race with the world's top drag racers. My name is Bill Pratt. It's great to be with you tonight. I'm super excited to bring you racer and media personality Alex Taylor. She's going to take us from the drags to the Salt Flats and to her gig on Hot Rod Garage TV. And we're going to hear all about it tonight. Before we bring Alex in, let's go to John. JB, how's it going, my friend?
They're doing great here, BP, and howdy from Houston, everybody. Please join us on the live chat. The chat board is on the right side of your YouTube window. Tell us who you are and where you're from. I'll take notes and I'll pass your questions and comments along to BP and Alex.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And folks, click the like and click the share button. Let your friends know we have Alex live. But I think we may have a little bit of problem on her end because I think she's just frozen up. So,
Can you hear me now?
hi, Alex. We can. Hello. Can you hear us okay?
Hi. As soon as we got started, everything stopped working.
I know that's well, it's awesome to see you. Let's see if we see. It feels like a tiny bit of a delay, but we'll just validate, and I'll cut that stuff off so that we look like we came in nice and smooth. Anyway, welcome to the show. It's so
Okay.
great to have you on.
Glad to be
So
here. Thank you.
awesome. Well, congrats on the brand new world record on the Salt Flats. Tell us about that day.
Yeah, so the salt, it's funny coming from a drag racing background. I didn't necessarily have, I know drag racers that end up at land speed racing, it seems like the natural progression. Um, and for some reason, it was just always something that was interesting me. I remember watching World's Fastest Indian for the first time,
Hmm.
and I was probably, I don't know, fifth. And in 2014, George Poteet, my mom and dad actually had built a few cars, not full cars, but they'd built him Willie's bodies for George Poteet. And he invited us out in 2014 to come out and watch. I had just turned 16. It was the first year that it rained out in a long time, so I didn't get to see anything. And it was just always one of those things where I was like, I will end up at the Salt at some point. I actually had the chance to go out last year with Roger Beckman and his Camaro. Roger Beckman and Tim Cox. They just randomly out of the blue called Keith Turkup, who is who I ended up going with this year. He called him. I didn't know the guy, and he's like, "Just come check out the car, and if you like it, you can drive it," kind of thing. So
That's awesome.
super neat. Um, Bad conditions last year. It almost rained out, so we got all the way up to an A license, but we didn't get to, go. We tried to go after a record. It didn't work out. It's the craziest thing. Well, then this year, Keith Turk and Tanya Turk offered for me to drive their Camaro, and David Freiberger let me borrow his engine. And so, like, going out was just, it's one of those, like, the Salt's such a surreal place. It's so different than drag racing. But, like, I love it out there. There's so many great stories. There's so many walking legends. And just to get to, like, run after a record that was set by Wally
Hmm.
Park's son.
Right.
It was so cool. It was neat.
That's amazing. That run was set. His run was in 1996, right? So I mean, were you walking the earth back in those days?
Nope, I was born in '97, so the record was older than me. So
That's
it was funny,
fantastic.
and I guess the reason is like it was a lower mile an hour record. It's one of those. It's funny how it worked out, but it was a lower mile an hour record, and I guess it's because like it was a carbureted record, and so I
Hmm.
guess with EFI and everything now, it's one of those that maybe people just haven't touched quite as much. But it was really neat. I mean it was just the car is very iconic, and the people that have driven it, Freiberger and the Turks and stuff, like they're just such cool people. They played a big part in my life in other aspects as well, between Drag Week and Hot Rod Magazine and things like that. And so like it was just cool to get to like it's very full circle.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So 1980 Camaro. There's folk. I think John's got a great picture of it back behind us. Hopefully, I'm not blocking it. But and there's some great. So really look up Alex, guys, and look up the world record online. There's lots of great articles. But you went 235. Went 236 first, and then 235, and in land speed record you have to combine the two, right?
Right.
And so kind of walk us through,
Uh-huh.
and it's quite a long drive. Tell us, what it's like. Walk us through like high level getting in the car, how long it takes to run that, and then what you have to do to kind of, I think you have to kind of quarantine the car and kind
Yeah, so right. Right. So rules have changed in the past couple years. They changed a little bit last year. And I mean, over the time period, they've changed. Used to you had to make a down run, like a qualifying run, a down run. You ended up having to make like 3 runs for your record. Now it's 2. You used to have
of.
to wait overnight and then you went back out the next morning, went the opposite direction. Now it's a little bit more simplified, but I'll go through the process. So we went out. If you guys like drag racing, you're like stuff happens quickly.
Right.
Sometimes you end up in the lanes, but stuff happens fairly quickly. To make a pass at Bonneville, depending on how many lanes are open, you may be 8 hours. It could be 6 hours. It could be 8 hours. You could turn around quicker than that. But something really special about Bonneville is like when you get up there to the start line, they have multiple cars lined up, so they send them off different cars different times, and it's one of those, they say like the world is yours, like this, the course is yours. They literally give you the course. So
Wow.
it's not like a green light, like the yellow lights drop and you hit the gas pedal. It's like you take your time, you get composed. So like everything is a lot slower paced. So when we went out, we made a couple runs, and the first one tried to go a little bit slower. Sorry, turn stuff down. We tried to go a little bit slower just so I could get used to the car. We went, I don't know, right around 200. We ended up fighting problems for the first couple days. It was a little bit disheartening because it was just stuff that like it wasn't making sense. We heard a blower belt. We had problems with the distributor moving, things like that. Well, anyways, I say that because each of those runs, it's not like you just go back and you get in the lanes. You mess up a run, you're 8 hours now. It may be
Right.
the next day. Like you're on a time crunch. Thankfully, Speed Week it's truly a week. Well, when we finally went out for the first time that it really ran, I have my phone mounted on the dash, and a lot of people don't watch their mile an hour, but I am a numbers girl. I like running data. I like doing all that. So phone's mounted to the dash, and I know the speeds that I need to enter and exit each mile because it's the average of your entry and your exit speed. So we go out. It was bright and early in the morning. We opted to go for a bright and early run. So we get to the salt, as the sun's rising, and it's this just magical feeling because you're pulling out on, the middle of nowhere and the sun's coming up. It's beautiful. We get out, we tow from our pit over to, we have to go through a fuel check because of the class that we were running in. We weren't a fuel class. We had to have our fuel. They had to watch us pour fuel in from a sealed container. So we were running C16. So we were in a gas class, so we pull into the fuel filling area, and they watch us. They unseal our tank for us, then they unseal our gas can for us, and then they watch us pour the fuel in, and then they seal everything back up. So then we'd pull out, we'd get a run. Because we would get there earlier, we got in a little bit quicker. It's probably like a 2 or 3 hour wait, depending on how many cars from impound from the day before we're running. So it'd be about a 2-3 hour wait. The morning that we did the first qualifying run, I go down, and it's one of those where it's like when stuff is right, it's just right. The car was finally running good. I was watching my speed, and I'm like, okay, I know I need to enter it, like say if I'm entering at 210, for example, I'm going for like a, 230 minimum, something like that. So if I enter at 210, I need to come out like 24. I'm like running all these numbers. And so as I'm making the pass, for me, it's really hard because I'm very mechanically inclined. So I hear things, I smell things, it's just like, it's the weirdest feeling. The first time I ever felt, they told me don't input. Like you don't really want to input a lot. You let the car kind of do what the car wants to do. And last year, it was not like that because it was just so wet. The salt was wet. I was just driving the whole way. So anyways, it's just like I just feel the car just like guiding me all across the course. I'm taking up the whole thing. Like not out of hand. It's driving itself. Anyways, I get out the top. I knew on that first pass, that because I did my math. I'm like, oh yeah, we locked that one up. I think we needed like a 216 or something, and we ended up, I knew it was like 230 something. So I get out at the top end, and like it's one of those where like you almost want to cry, but the photographers came up and stuff, so I knew that they told me that like I qualified. And so, of course, my dad and my mom and Keith and Tanya Turk and my sister, they come pulling up, and like they're just like hooping and hollering, and it's just like the coolest feeling getting pulled back, and like everybody knows, so you're waving, because they're all listening to the radio. They're watching the cars from a distance go by in the pits, right. And they're listening on the radio, and it was just like I just had the biggest grin on my face. So we pull into impound because you have 1 hour from that run from then to get to impound, so you can't dilly-dally. Keep in mind, you're 5 miles, you could be up to 5, 6, 7 miles down course, and you got to get all the way back with a speed limit of like 30 mile an hour or something like that, so you can't fly, so anyways, we don't dilly around. We pack everything up, we pull back, we pull into impound, and impound, they call it the happiest place on earth, because that means that you're there for a reason. So we pull into impound. We had, I think, a 4-hour period. This is the part that's changed. We had a 4-hour period to watch or to like work on the car. Used to, you had to let the car sit overnight, but they changed the rule last year due to time, where you could technically run your backup run the same day, but you have to sit for 4 hours, and then they bring all of the impound cars up at once. So it's kind of like this parade, an impound car parade. So anyways, we ran early, so 4 hours was before they pulled us back up. So we worked on the car a little bit. They come over and watch us fill fuel again. And then once that time had passed, 4 hours, we were not allowed to touch the car at that point. But when it was time for all impound cars to go back up, we went back over to the pits. They call us up. They line us up in the order that they want. And then you do this cool little parade back to the front of the lanes. And you're in a special impound lane. And just like as they pull you up, it's one of those like, I knew on that one, it's like, if this happens, I'm going to be part of the 200 mile an hour club, So it's like this really, really cool feeling. And my favorite part is when they pull you up to the lanes, and Jill, she always she started me every time. There's different starters, but they do this thing where they're like, visor down, course is yours. And it's the most just incredible feeling. And so it's like, once this all happens, we're at the starting line, they come through, they check your belts. My crew straps me in, but then your belts, checks your Hans. It's one of the safest things I've ever done. They check everything, shut the door, your crew goes back, gets in the truck, she goes, visor down, course is yours, and you take off. And it's just like, all of a sudden, you like, once you kick off from the push truck, it's just like, get on it, get some speed under you. And it's one of those, like, I'm like, okay, we're doing good, and it's like, I'm doing that math. I'm like, okay, we entered, we exited, and I'm like, I'm not taking it out any farther, because since I qualified in like 2 to 3 mile, I had to repeat that in the 2 to 3 miles. So anyways, pull off, and it's like, at that point, I turn off, and it's like, I know, and as they pull me back again, we have an hour to get to impound, and then they do like the test to make sure like you have the right amount of cubic inch for your class and like all this, and then they sign you off and they give you a red hat, and it's just like, you're now part of the club. So it's a long story. That's a long story or short story I made long, I guess, but overall it's just a really surreal experience.
That was perfect. Oh, what a great walkthrough. Thank you so much. And congrats on getting the red hat. I love it. Well, do you want to see if we got a couple folks out there with a couple of questions or thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to our club and see what folks have to say. John, who's out there tonight?
We have people here from coast to coast tonight. Pete Mariello in Los Angeles says good evening. Jack Red in Maryland says hi, everyone. Randy Johnston in Northern California says hello, all great guest. Rich Panicaro in New Jersey says good evening, everybody. Thomas Warren, I believe, is in North Carolina, and he says hi, team. And Salt City Muscle, who is Kay Thurkelson, she says she's here tonight.
Hey, Kay.
And that's about what we have for the moment.
All right, great, everything.
I was going to ask you about that, that record-setting race that you did, Alex, and that was a great story.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, folks, think about some good questions and comments for Alex, and we'll put her on the spot tonight. So really good. That was a really storied race car, though. I was taking a look at an article earlier, and just so many people have driven the car itself. and of course a lot of motors. And I saw a
Okay,
photo
here's
where hang on, John. Can
Kay
you hear me?
Thurkelson
Okay.
said there's nothing. Oh, I'm sorry, VP.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and do this one, and we'll go on.
Kay said there's nothing like watching land speed racing on the salt. Nothing short of spectacular.
That's a good way to put
Absolutely.
it.
And I couldn't agree more. I think that's great.
I keep hearing from my friends that said I got to get out there, and I missed it again this year, and but we'll get out there. Brett Kepner, I don't know if you've seen Brett. Do you know Brett Kepner? If you've seen him out there, he's gone to many of them.
I met so many people this year. I feel guilty if I say no, and I
Yeah,
do.
he wouldn't. He hasn't been out there for a few years, but he never missed one until a few years ago. But
Oh man.
he's a good friend of mine in the show, and he's always after me. So I'll get out there maybe
You
next
got to.
year. Well, so you're kind of joining a storied number of racers who've raced that car to records, and I saw that it was great seeing the photo where you put your. They all had their names and the speeds they ran, and I saw where you put your name and the speed you ran right with a little Sharpie, I think.
It was so cool to be able to do that, and it's one of those like that doesn't even do it justice. Like the amount of people that are, or there's a couple more people, but the amount of records that are actually there, that's just a fraction of them. So Keith and Tanya, they only write the ones that like have meaning to them for one reason. I mean, they all do, but the ones that hold extra meaning for some special reason, that's the ones that they put up there. And so like that's just really, it was just so cool to be able to join it, and like I said, those three are all very special people to me. They, for different reasons, they've helped, like been a part of my career since I was 16, coming to Drag Week, and so like it was just cool to get to be a part of that, and add to that list. So
yeah. Well, the different, that's really the last, as I've been told. I haven't been out there, so I can't talk with too much authority, except I trust the folks who tell me this is the last place on earth for hot rodders, right? So any sort of combination, any sort of mechanical idea you have to go out there and just test it. And
I
and
feel
you
like
see things you can't see anywhere.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of truth to that, because it's one of those where it's like it's hard to explain to other people, but the stories and the legends and that are out there, like there's so many intelligent people, that are like, they're not just like buying parts and bolting them on. It's a proving grounds. It's still a proving grounds. It's a sacred proving ground for hot rodders, and that's one of the things where like just to get to be a part of that's really cool to me. So yeah, no, that's a great way to put it, like you said.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Not taking away anything from anybody, but there's a lot of folks who get seat time, who somebody has completely built that car. It's complete a lot often bought. I mean, everybody's got nobody. It's not easy for, in no way is any of it easy, but it's pretty cool to get this with like a true hot rodding machine that someone had to come up with a new way to do it.
And to your point there, it is interesting because I agree. There's a lot, and like I almost felt weird. I did feel weird because I was like, I didn't build this. Like the 55 my dad and I built that I normally race. Like every other car that I raced, I pretty much had my hands in the middle of, and this one was different in a different way. Just because it's like, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily super right in the middle of it, but it was in the middle of like the organization and like figuring it out. But I totally agree. It's one of those like out there, it's like there's a lot more people that are super hands-on, and that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so cool. Well, I mean, as awesome as you are, nobody just rolled up and gave you this ride. So walk us through what, where you got started in racing, and to the point where someone said, hey, you know what? I think we want you to be the person to race the Hot Rod Special this year.
So it's one of those, like, it goes back since I was little. It's when I grew up in the industry, I guess is a good way to put it. My mom and dad, they built more street rods, like 90s and early 2000s. They did Willies and fiberglass, hundreds and hundreds of fiberglass Willies and Fords and things like that. They did production of that. And so I grew up in the shop from just a couple weeks old. With my mom, she ran the office and managed employees, and my dad was in there like innovating and coming up with, what to create next and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those, like, I didn't know a life. I tell people all the time, a lot of people realize they have a moment where they realize they want to make cars their life. They realize that that's what they love. I tell people I had a point in time where I realized that wasn't normal. So I didn't know another life, like I did not know another life where automotive wasn't the everyday. It wasn't every conversation. It wasn't every trip. It wasn't every dinner, And so like we literally like eat, sleep, breathe automotive. And so like I just realized, like, oh crap, this isn't normal for everybody. I have to figure out how to make this my life. So anyways, I say that to say I grew up so deep into it. I had to figure out how to make it my own so I could stay in it. And it's one of those, like, I grew up following my dad. I was always super hands-on. My dad's a great teacher. He's an amazing teacher. And so I just followed him. I remember from, young. I'd help them lay up fiberglass. My dad would show me how he'd like make stuff. I'd ask a question, he'd answer. And so I just loved every part of it. It's one of those, like, one of my biggest things that I always tried to do is be hands-on, because like, to your point earlier, a lot of people just kind of show up into it. I always wanted skills to back up what I wanted to do. And I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, but I liked what my dad did. I liked creating. I liked building. I liked imagining. It's like his mantra was always like, well, if I can do it, if someone else can do it, why can't I do it? I can figure that out. And so like I kind of same way. So anyways, I say all that to say, like, I always tried to be in the middle of automotive, be hands-on, have my skills back up the things that I want to do, not just be a driver. Barb Hamilton, drag racer, I had the chance to meet her. She told me, she's like, now whatever you do, make sure you're also the mechanic. Make sure you're in the middle of it, not just the driver. And that always stuck with me. So anyways, I say that to say I worked on building my skills, not necessarily intentionally, because I couldn't have predicted when I was 13, 14, 15 that I would be doing what I am now. But I was always like in the middle of like learning stuff. And when I was 15, 16, my mom and dad and I built my first car, 68 Camaro. And the deal was that like I was in the middle. I had to be there, I had to help, had to figure it out. Had to learn. And that wasn't like they twisted my arm, like it was just, that was just one of the stipulations. I wanted to do it. So anyways, we started building that. I started racing when I was 16. My mom and I went on Hot Rod Magazine's Drag Week when I was 16. I was freshly 16. I can't believe my dad let me do it, looking back, in a freshly built brand new car that had Holly EFI on it, which was new at the time.
Right.
And I had just learned how to tune the car. I say tune very loosely, but I was making all the changes. Like I learned how to set it up, whatever. Anyway, so like started off there, 16 years old, Hot Rod Magazine's Drag Week. And I wasn't doing, like, people now, you'll understand this, but like I talk to people younger than me, they're like, wait, you drag race before social media? And I was like, well, yeah, like
it did exist.
I did it because I like it, like, not to create content, whatever. So anyways, I started doing that, and then later on realized, like, stuff took off, people took interest, not intentionally, it's not what the purpose was, but it did. And probably around 18, 19, as I was getting ready to go into college, I realized if I wanted to race as much as I wanted to race, I had to find a way to pay for that.
Right.
And so like I started working more on like sponsorships and proposals and how to make social media make money and stuff like that. And it's one of those, I was selling wheels for Billet Specialties. I was selling, fuel pumps for Aeromotive. Like I was a dealer for this, and like just, hustling my way through college and like just working on stuff like that. I just got college for marketing and business and all that. Well, anyways, I continued, growing skills in business, growing skills in automotive. And that's just one of those, like, it's literally like the snowball effect, it led to building the 55, which was like this major marketing projects of like trying to figure out how to fund that. And then it led to the TV show Hot Rod Garage found me from like some of my social media posts, and they like interviewed me. And it's one of those, like, it's so hard to put the last specifically 11 years into like how everything played out, but it's just one of those, like, building skills, building a business mindset, and like figuring out how to put all those things together that put me in a position that somebody like, I met the people like Keith Turk and made friendships with him. You know, I've known Keith Turk for 11 years, and now Hot Rod Magazine and Hot Rod Special type stuff has been a part of my life for at least 11, 12 years now. And so it's one of those that, like, it's not like it happened overnight. Like, I made those relationships, and I remember talking to Keith and Tanya Turk when I was 16, and I was like, he told me, he's like, my wife drives, you know, land speed cars, and you need to go talk to her. And so it's so funny, like 11 years later, I'm driving their car that I talked to him about when I was 16. So
That's
it's a
so
long story,
amazing.
but yeah.
I love it. Well, it's a great story. And, you know, I need to take some lessons from you, because I've been on the web since 96 and I haven't figured out how to monetize this monkey yet. But we had a lot of fun. And, you know, and I got to turn a lot of heroes into pals, which is a big,
I like that.
part of the
That's
deal.
a good way to put
So
it.
that's our mantra. Let me see where we are. So let's check in with John and see if anyone on the chat line has any questions or comments.
Yes, we've had three. Is my mic on? Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
We've had three comments, and they're pretty cool. Rich Pedicaro asked a question. He asked, what did Alex drive before this?
So
How about everything?
Yeah.
Well,
We may have covered it, but so it was the 68 to 55. Is there anything before that?
Yeah.
68, 55, the 68 Camaro, 55 Chevy, and then, like, I get to drive all kinds of cool stuff with, like, Hot Rod Garage and different things, but that's my two main cars. So
Cool. We're going to talk about Hot Rod Garage here in a second, but what
Perfect.
else you got, John?
Randy Johnston, we were talking about the Dry Lakes racing out there. He said it's the last bastion of grassroots hot rodding. And I agree. When I was a kid, I subscribed to Hot Rod Magazine, and the main feature that they had was the Dry Lakes stuff, and it was just fascinating. I need to go out there one of these days and be a part of that.
absolutely.
And Tom Warren answered Rich, and he said Alex is a go fast drag racer and old school too. And he said, say hi to your dad.
I will.
Awesome. Yeah, because what's the tagline here? Let's see. Be happy, go fast, stay pretty. Is that your
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah. I got that off your website.
That's
It's
so
funny.
cool.
So I don't want to, like, take a while, but, like, to the point of the tagline, this is something I don't know if I've ever, probably no one actually knows, but it's like, where did be happy, go fast, stay pretty? I don't tell people this, but one of my mom and dad's customers, when I was probably 15, we'd gone over for a drag race at Tulsa, and he'd just become a friend, you know, an older guy that, like, kind of a family friend, and he had been drinking a little bit, and as we're leaving that night, he's like, you know what? Just be happy and go fast and I don't know, stay pretty. And so, like, I made my first t-shirts just because of what that said. And I let the thing it died. I forgot about it until I started my stuff. And I was like, you know what? That's a good tagline. So
Yeah. That's good. You can pull it off. We can't. I don't go fast.
I don't know, you
Certainly
can.
never. But that's fantastic. Thank you, John. Good stuff, folks. Well, we were talking about it here for a second, and you're on TV, you're doing social media, and you're doing a bunch of stuff. Tell us about this Hot Rod Garage TV gig you got going on. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, so Motor Trend's Hot Rod Garage. So when I was 24, well, right before that, there had been, like, some TV show talk, like, you know, random things had come up, nothing had ever came to be. I'd gone through, like, kind of a producer dance and talking to people, and, you know, nothing ever panned out. Anyways, so there was a contract that, because Motor Trend and Hot Rod Magazine, you know, like, that's Hot Drag Week, which I race, is a part of that group. And so I was around a lot of people that made that kind of stuff happen, also, like, TV type stuff. So anyways, I think the way it played out was Motor Trend had got wind that I had been talking to, like, a producer a little bit. We'd worked on a show a little bit because they had come and filmed at Drag Week, and they had come to me with a basically a holding contract where it was like, if I signed it, locked me in for a year. I didn't have a TV show, but it was just like, it locked me in. I ended up turning it down, which was a hard decision, but I didn't do it because it scared me a little bit. Like the fact I'm like, what if something happens in a year? You know, I'm like 23. I'm like, what if something happens? Right. Well, anyways, we'd gone back and forth. That died. And early in 2022, I got a call, I think it was, or an email from a guy named Mike Pantaleo. I can't even say his last name now. He's actually become a really good friend. He's my showrunner now. Call him Mikey P. And I got this email from him. It was, you know, like, let's do a Zoom call. We have interest in doing a TV show. And I'm like, we just went through this, you know, like, why are we doing this again? I had not talked to him, but I'm like, all right. So we hop on a Zoom call, and he does, I mean, it's so vague. I had no idea it was Hot Rod Garage. I didn't even know. It's just like, he asked me these like very surface level questions. And I'm like, I got off the call. I remember going to my dad, and I was like, he's like, how was it? I'm like, nah, this is another call, you know, whatever. And anyways, he calls me back a couple days later. He's like, hey, would you like to come out for a screen test to LA? Like, we like you. We are doing a screen test. Tony Angelo from the show Hot Rod Garage will actually be leaving as a co-host. We're looking to replace him. You would be coming in that position. Now, to be honest, I didn't know Hot Rod Garage. I didn't know any of the episodes. I didn't know Lucky or Tony. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I do my research, you know. I start looking. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This has to be fake. You know, like, whatever. But they booked my flight. I fly out, and I say this was like one of the coolest weekends. It was like one of the coolest times of my life. I was driving the Bumblebee Pro Mod, which I was driving in Radio versus the World. And I was driving that for Patrick Miller. And I had just done a couple races. And anyways, I go out to in the 55, I just started running 200. So like, this was a very exciting point in my career. And I go out to LA, and I remember I did my screen test, and it was the most awkward thing because I didn't know what was going on. I'd never been in a studio, but we're in Hot Rod Garage where I ended up filming, and we had a bar. So it was a bar up there where they used to host parties, but it's where we all ate lunch, and it was just like a stage, and they're looking at me, and there's an LS motor sitting here, and they gave me this like little script. Hot Rod Garage wasn't scripted, but they gave me this like couple lines that they wanted me to say. Right. They're like, just tell the camera, welcome back to Hot Rod Garage. My name's Alex Taylor. You know, like I do this little stuff. I was like, okay. So I do those couple lines, a little screen test. And then they're like, now pull the head off of this motor. I'm like, okay. So I was like, they're like, talk to us like you would talk about what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, like this is awkward, you know, like Lucky and like 5 other people are watching me like in silence. And I'm just like, whatever. Well, anyways, like we kind of hit it off, and I leave, and I remember, I can tell you exactly where I was. I was driving, I was on the phone with my dad, and I was like, I really like this. Like, I think I could really do this. Like, I like these people. I like what I could be doing. I remember him telling me, he's like, they're just not ready yet, Alex. Like, you know, like, don't get your hopes up too much. Like, it's gonna most likely go, like, and I'm not girl card. Like, I don't do anything like that. But he's like, you know, it's probably not gonna be you. Just don't get your hopes up, you know, like I hope it works out, but it's just, I don't think the show is at that point. And I'm like, you're right, probably not. But I remember I really wanted it. And that weekend, a couple weekends later, actually, I was on my way to race Radio versus the World class in the Pro Mod. And we were in the shop in North Carolina or South Carolina, wherever it was. And we were getting the car ready. And I got a call from Mikey P. And he calls me and he says, we like you. Do you like us? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so that's the weekend that I found out that like I was part of Hot Rod Garage. And I raced my first race and flew out a couple weeks later. And it was just like the coolest experience ever. So that's how fantastic. They found me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I always thought it was David Freiberger because I was friends with him. I thought he was the one that put my name in the hat. And I found out, I don't know that he didn't have something to do with it, but I ended up finding out that one of the girls that works for the show, she found me on Instagram and like threw my name in. And it's just like by total chance that it all worked out like it did. So
that's awesome. Well, God bless social media. Instagram, the new currency of the modern age.
You're right.
That's so amazing. Well, you know, I mean, I mean, I see these, well, sort of sometimes they're knuckleheads, but I see these guys out there with these ridiculously fast supercars that are out there crashing them, of course, because they don't know what they're doing. But
Yeah.
they get so many likes and views that the money is just rolling in, and I haven't figured
Oh
that out,
yeah.
nor will I
I
ever.
haven't figured that out either.
But oh my gosh, well, you're doing it the right way. Tell us a little bit about your actual racing. So running 200-mile-an-hour pro mods and doing amazing things there. How do you like that?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So I only ran the Bumblebee Pro Mod for a little while, but then I started like mainly we built. So I have 55 Chevy that my dad and I built in 2021, right after COVID, and we built it to go sixes, but it took a little while to get it there. And so now it's a 6 second, 670 repetitively quarter-mile car that's, goes 215, which is a shoebox. It shouldn't do that, like
It's solid.
we're approaching 220. It shouldn't do what it's doing. But I love it. So it's one of those, like, that car is really it's a very special car to me because it's like the first car that my dad and I really truly built together and like put our
Right.
design together. And um, it's one of those, like, we're able to set so many personal goals. We've learned so much the hard way with it, that like it's quite it pushes us in a good way. And so now mainly what I've been doing is running like drag and drive style events. And for those that don't know, basically it's where we drive for it's a 5-day race typically. And we race at 4 different tracks over the course of 5 days. So we end up racing for 5 days, starting in one track, ending at that same track. And we drive our car around 1,000 miles,
Wow.
about 200 to 300 miles each day. We have no support vehicles. We carry a little mini trailer behind us, and so like we keep any spare parts, and we don't have a crew. So only my dad and I are allowed to work on the car. He's my co-pilot now. My mom started off as my co-pilot, but my dad is now. And yeah, so it's like living 2-lane blacktop. Literally, it's
Right.
like how we feel, racing across the country. But mainly we do drag and drive events. Where you're like, it originally started as trying to find the fastest street car in America.
Right.
Hot Rod Magazine started Dragway. Now it's like drag and drives are a whole thing of their own. They're all over.
Yeah.
And so my dad and I do those, and we do a couple little one-off events each year, but we haven't had the chance to really run more than that because with Hot Rod Garage, I've been so busy. I haven't had the chance. We do good to get what we do.
Right.
So anyways, that's kind of our race schedule. But coming up next year, I don't know if you guys have seen the stuff with the Motor Trend, like the way like all of that's pretty much coming to an end. We'll have new shows out, but the studio side, so we won't be filming next year quite as much or any for that. So hopefully that opens up some opportunity to go race a little bit more. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, you're doing it the real way, right? You remember, well, you don't remember, personally speaking, but back in the beginning of Pro Street, that's how it was, right? And then it got corrupted. Basically, it ended up being just a bunch of trailered pro mods
Yep.
that, maybe they had the smaller wheels or whatever, different rules changes.
Right.
But back in the day, you were driving that bad boy to the track,
Mm-hmm.
over several miles. It had to be a minimum distance and,
Mm-hmm.
running it. So it's really awesome to see you bringing that back.
It's cool. It's cool to get to be like, it's one of those that started. I know it has history longer than from drag week time, obviously,
Hmm.
which was before I was there. But I mean, it's one of those, like, it started out even when I first started. It'd been going for a long time, but when I started in 2013, it was still a freak show. Like, people hear drag and drive and it was just like, what is that? It wasn't drag and
Right.
drive, it was drag week. There wasn't a drag and drive, wasn't even a term then. And so it's pretty cool to see, like, now those cars have become very popular and that style of racing has become very popular. So yeah, because to your point, it's cool to be
Yeah.
able to drive your race car.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. And it's got to have a good radiator and good tires.
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
check in with John in the chat, King. Anything going on out there, John? Or any thoughts from
Yeah,
you?
yeah, we have a couple of questions. Randy Johnston asked if there's any chance for a new Hot Rod Garage with Lucky on YouTube.
So I can't speak on Lucky's part, but I do know that he is very active on his YouTube and he plans on growing that. And then I am also very active, or I'm working on being more active on my YouTube, but I have my YouTube Riding with Alex Taylor and Lucky has his. So we definitely will have our own separate YouTubes. Whether or not a group project or a joint project comes up in the future, to be determined. Never say never, but we'll both still be active. We'll both still be in the same locations at some point in time, so who knows? But right now it's like it's in a weird time where everyone's still figuring everything out. But I really think for a lot of people, it's gonna have, they're gonna grow their stuff, and so follow, because they'll,
That's awesome.
lucky
Yeah.
will be busy.
We have to figure out how to like cross promote. I mean, I haven't really figured that out with YouTube yet. We've been up here a couple of months, but I don't really see a place where you can subscribe to a bunch of shows. But I would love to put like just a group of really top level shows that I really like in one place. And maybe I
It'd
figure,
be awesome.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, like make it like a network, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. And I want to set like pull your stuff into my channel if there's like a link, right? So anyway, maybe we'll work on that next. John, what else we got, sir?
Well, I have a question about that black Volkswagen in the graphic. Is that your dad's?
No, that one's mine. So
that was yours.
Yeah, so we built it on the show originally. I had a lot of style inspiration from my dad. I'd always wanted a bug because he was really big into bugs, but not when I was around. Like, I never saw him with a bug. Anyways, I saw all his pictures, of his cars. And so when the show asked me what was one car that I wanted to build, and I was like, I want to build a bug, and like, he's like, what? I was like, no, come on, it'll be cool. So anyways, my dad helped me create a parts list to kind of give it the look that it had. But we built it on there. I bought it from the show the first week. Like, we built it, and then I bought it the day after the episode wrapped up. Then I kept it out in California for, I don't know, a year and a half, and just cruised it around. It was so much fun. And then I got it home earlier this year, so now I get to cruise it around at home. But he has one. He's got a 56, and then mine's a 62.
Awesome. Well, John had one too. John,
I've had a few.
Had it on the strip too.
Oh, that's cool. They're fun cars.
I did. It was a 70 VW. It was a mile custom street rod. And I drove it up to Eddyville, Iowa for the Draglist Nationals in 2009. And it was a miracle. I won the race.
Right.
There's a picture of me with the trophy in the winner's circle. I couldn't believe it. I remember saying, "Will miracles never cease?"
That's awesome.
He was up against a pretty badass Camaro, but the Camaro broke, and that's how it works.
That's drag racing, right?
That's right. That's drag racing.
Well,
that's rad.
In the second round, when we got the green light, I did a little wheelie. I took off, and I heard ping, and I looked over, and they were still sitting there. The rear end blew out of the Camaro.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and made the run. But for round 3, I gave the keys to BP, and I had him make the run because I didn't want to rub it in their face, But BP did fine.
It was
and when
fun.
he crossed the finish line, I said, "Oh no, the chute didn't come out."
Thing had the gas pedal was about the size of a mini Hershey bar. It was something, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, it was.
Excuse me, sorry, getting over a tiny cough. I made it almost all the way through the show. But do you have any shout outs to any sponsors or other folks who've helped you in your career?
Oh man, that's one thing that I tell people all the time. I mean, you guys will know how it goes, but like having, even if it's not just a sponsor, but like the right people in your corner, for advice or whatever. But some big ones that there's been, I will mess this up because from the time I'm 16, I've had people that have been a very big part of making my stuff successful. But of course I have to thank my mom and dad because like they're, my dad always like, and my mom too, like make stuff happen. At this point, we all work really closely together. But then as far as like actual sponsors go, Peak is a huge partner that they're just like, they're some of the best people to work with. Pennzoil, Iski Cams, those are my current, really good partners. And Mickey Thompson, that's one that like I feel really lucky to get to be in partnership with. And all those companies are fairly, they're legacy companies, and so it's not just something that like came up yesterday. So the fact that they trust me to represent their brand very special to me because, you know, they have a legacy that they have to uphold. But then, you know, along the way, it's like you've got quick performance and precision turbo. And, you know, I'm going to forget so many people. It's not even forget billet specialties. It's just that, like, I recognize that I'm really, really lucky to get to work with some really great people. And so, yeah, but those are some, you know, big partners right now that are just, they make my life easier and they're fun to work with. That's for sure. So.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Nikki Thompson, you got Iski, who I just saw out at Irwindale, 103 years old. Bless his heart. He's rocking and rolling.
He's impressive. I got to go to Taco Tuesday with him a couple weeks ago. They're like, because when I go out there, Nolan from Iski, he always like me and him and his wife, we always go to dinner, and he's like, hey, we go to dinner, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, wait, I forgot it's Taco Tuesday. Do you want to go with Ed? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, of course I'll go to Taco Tuesday with Ed. That's cool. So.
That's right. Nobody turns down a date with Iski. Come on. Well, let's see, we're getting close to saying farewell, so I'll ask John here in a moment where, you know, if anybody has any final thoughts from you or for you, but where can folks find you on the internet or elsewhere? Obviously on the TV show, but do you have a social media following where folks can follow along?
Yeah, so on YouTube, it is Riding with Alex Taylor, and then on all other social platforms, it's Alex Taylor Racing. So
cool.
Pretty simple.
Nice and neat. That's what Miss Kate told me. Here's how you find her, and she gave me the address. But well, John, anybody else from out there in chat land or yourself? Any final thoughts for Alex?
Yes, Rich Panicaro in New Jersey said Alex is gorgeous and smart. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And Kay Thurkelson said, ask Alex about the Iski Roadster that now resides in the Speedway Museum.
Good cut. I was just there. Yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah, so the Iski Roadster, was built last year. My dad built it for Iski Camps because Ed's car that, you know, you think of Ed Iskandarian, you think of his Roadster. It's in the Speedway Museum. And they wanted a vehicle that was to celebrate their 75th year, which happened last year, while still honoring that, you know, Ed's car. And they can't take the original one out of the museum and cruise it around, you know, like it's just not going to happen. So when the idea came to be, Nolan and my dad were discussing, and they wanted to, you know, what would Ed do now? And the cool part is since Ed's still around, you can actually be like, Ed, do you approve? You know, and that's very special. And so instead of having, you know, an engine like Ed had in his, he put a Godzilla, which was, you know, it's new and it's not done. And Dad went through all these different things. And so when we told Speedway, we're going to put a Godzilla engine in this Roadster, they're like, I don't know about that. But it ended up working out so well. And then him and my fiance, Nick, they cast valve covers to look like the Iski valve covers. And so, like, anyways, they pulled the key elements, the body lines, the trim pieces, the interior. They pulled the key pieces that look like Ed's, that make Ed's car iconic, but then they put new elements that would be like, what would Ed do today? Like, let's put a nice engine in it. Let's do Godzilla. Let's do something creative, cutting edge with this transmission, you know. So they pulled stuff like that, and Dad is really good. He did really good work with the car, and it just turned out amazing. And so now it's currently sitting in the Speedway Museum, the Museum of American Speed, sitting next to the original. It's trippy to see them both together because they look alike and different at the same time. But we like to say, like, they're sitting there talking to each other. You know? And it's like the old guy being like, what are you doing? You know, like, you're a little different.
Little whippersnapper. What do you?
They sit there together.
I love it. WWID. What would Ed do? What would Idsky do? That's the.
We thought we were going to make bracelets like that, actually. What would Ed do?
I love it. That's so cool. And I just did visit that museum a couple months ago. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's incredible. It's just the stories that it could tell, literally.
Right. You can't. I had to get out of it. I only had 2 or 3 hours, but I could have spent obviously a couple of days.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Well, Mr. Bockelman, anybody else with a thought, or yourself?
Well, if it's the Iski Roadster that I'm thinking it is, it's an icon of hot rodding, and it had that Ardon engine, you know, with the Ardon heads on it, and it had this custom front end that really looked cool. And Iski, he must be about 102 years old now.
103 now.
103. Yep.
103.
Yep.
We had him on the show a few years back, and that guy was just unbelievable. I was spellbound listening to him
He's got
because
some
he
good
gave us the
stories.
entire history of hot rodding. It was incredible. And Mark Malinsky just checked in from New Jersey, and he says, "Good evening, everybody." And we're caught up for the moment, y'all.
All right. Thank you, John. And thank you, chat gang. Appreciate it. And man, that's awesome. Well, Alex, it's been so much fun visiting with you. Any final thoughts before we say farewell and send you on your way?
And just thanks for having me on, and thank you to everybody that watched. It's been a good chat, so I appreciate it.
It was an absolute blast. So nice to meet you. Thanks to Kay for introducing us. She's our killer producer that makes sure that we get the very best folks. And I look forward to seeing you somewhere down the road. Have an awesome Christmas season. Happy New Year, and all the best. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. You too. All right. See you guys.
Bye. And ladies and gentlemen, Alex Taylor. Oh my goodness, unbelievable. So cool. Let's take this opportunity to go to John Bockelman for this week's JB's Take. John, a really special one this week. Take it away.
Thanks, BP. I don't have a racer of the week this week, but the next two shows I will. I've got them lined up, and they're great racers. I'm looking forward to featuring them. So I had this space to myself, and I decided to talk about my grandfather. I only met him a few times, and when I did, he was not very friendly to me. What I know about him, I found out from other people. He kept to himself, and he didn't share any of his life with me. He was pretty much that way with everybody, so I didn't feel rejected from him any more than everybody else did. I don't know anything about him before I met him, which was only a few times. Mac had a difficult life, but as I've learned through my own experience, people create their own problems. Some people blame everybody else, and I've done that myself, only to realize later that the messes I found myself in were my own doing. And that's hard to admit, and I don't think he ever owned up to his failures. Maybe he did, but I never knew him well enough to know that. He was a brilliant musician. He was a multi-instrumentalist. He won a banjo picking contest in the early 1920s, and he wore a gold banjo on his lapel from that victory. He had great success in Galveston before and during Prohibition. In that era, his band worked the hot spots all over town, which were owned and operated by the Maceo Syndicate. Most notably, he and his band were the featured house band at the Balinese Room, which was a world-class speakeasy, and it was situated an eighth mile from the seawall out in the Gulf of Mexico. There was an alarm set up at the seawall entrance. When the cops would show up to bust the place, my grandmother was stationed at the entrance as the hat check girl. And when Johnny Law showed up, she'd step on the alarm button, and by the time the cops got to the ballroom, instead of gambling and drinking, they were having a prayer meeting. And that system worked until the mid-1950s when the Texas Rangers finally got to them and shut it down. Mac was a rock star. He lived it. He was the Axl Rose of Galveston. He had 4 daughters, all named after flowers. They were wonderful. It was a great party. But what happened to them when they were kids is a different story. His lifestyle caught up with him, and my grandmother, Franny, found out about his affair with a beauty operator. She divorced him, but she took it to the extreme. His child support payments were returned, and he was not allowed to visit his kids. They ended up in poverty, and he ended up in California, where he remarried and had a new family. He wrote screenplays. We visited them in 1959. He took us on a tour of San Francisco. It was a fantastic experience, but I was not given any attention from him other than I was just there with everybody else. When our 58 Rambler American sedan broke down in Pecos, Texas on the way, my dad put us on a train, and he stayed behind to wait on the water pump to get delivered and installed in the car. We stopped in Los Angeles for an hour, and Mac's friend Dan White, who was a character actor in Hollywood, met us at the train station, and we had lunch with him. He played the leader of the redneck mob in To Kill a Mockingbird, and he played a number of bad guy roles throughout his career. He was a fine gentleman, and he was super nice to us. He was one person who knew Mac, who only had nice things to say about him, and I never forgot that. One of the things I dreaded when my mother made me play piano for company at our house. When I was 12, she made me play for her sisters. Now, I had a knack for playing ragtime and honky-tonk piano, which I taught myself to play as my lessons were all classical stuff. Anyway, I played for them, and I heard them say, "Just like Daddy." It wasn't until I was in my 50s when my Aunt Rosebud called me and asked me to come visit her. I spent a few hours with her. She was about a month away from passing away, and she pulled out a box of photos and gave me the pictures that she had of Mac. It hit me like a thunderbolt. The picture of him playing with the KFUL orchestra in the late 1920s showed him playing his banjo. I was dumbstruck by that picture. There I was. I had a successful career as a musician, but deep down I was asking myself, why am I doing this? I already had a successful career as a graphic artist, but something was pushing me to perform all those years. I learned that day why I did it. I had Mac's DNA in me. Like I said, I hardly knew him, but he left me with his musical ability without me knowing it for 50 years. And for that, I'm grateful. And my Aunt Rosebud gave me the pictures that answered the huge question I had been carrying inside me until that day. Sorry about that. I had to clear my throat. Mac, I hope you rest in peace. Your legacy is somewhat questionable, but there were a lot worse guys than you, and I'm sure there were a lot worse things you could have done. I wish we could have been close, but I'm just one of many who feel that way. Everybody stay safe and well. You are the most important part of this show, and we love you all. We look forward to having you all with us every week. It's a great way for us to spend an hour together on a Monday night. I'll see y'all next time. God bless America. Back to you, BP.
All right, thank you, John. Really, really awesome learning about your granddad, and that's pretty fascinating. Pretty cool, and you're carrying on the best parts of his legacy, which is important.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally was able to say something about him. And I lost track of his family. I had aunts and uncles who were younger than me, and they were always real nice to us and everything. But Mac himself was a distant figure.
Yeah, well, adult estrangement happens when just reading an article about it, but fascinating stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's talk about stuff coming up. So this weekend, Eastern Museum of Motor Racing's drag racing event on December 5th. Hope you can go on up. I think some of the folks here will. I will not have a car, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make it this year or not, but it's always a great event. This December 5th, right here this Saturday. So Eastern Museum of Motor Racing. Excuse me. Now me and John are the same thing. Upcoming guests, so Miss K has been burning up the phone lines, but we actually had one person pull back where we had a solid day today. So we don't have anybody to announce for the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, or the 30th. But we have not given up. Kay has a huge list of names. Amazing, amazing, amazing people that's going to blow your mind once we get their names on the dotted line. Lots of big stars of the NHRA and elsewhere. But nothing to report for next week. So we will let you know as the week progresses. And we'll let John know. So John, by turning out these posters every week, we're going to put some pressure on him and see if we can give him fewer days to put him under the gun. But
that's okay. I can make them on the spot. no problem.
He always comes through. Yeah, I think I gave Kay had like 20 people on a list. I gave her another 20 today, so somebody's coming. Pardon me. Let's go on to those we lost, folks. A couple of names this week. Say farewell to on the 23rd of the month. We lost Indy Class winner Jim Voth, a really great sportsman racer. Lots of folks loved. Unfortunately, passed away due to cancer, which came up very, very quickly. Well, farewell to Jim Voth, a really great racer. And then another huge name in the Mopar Superstock ranks on the 24th of the month of November, I should say. Now, as we're in December, Ron Mancini passed away. One of the really top Superstock Mopars in history. Maybe remember the yellow and red Gratiot auto supply cars of Ron Mancini. A very, very tough racer, very well regarded. Ron Mancini passing away on the 24th of November. And those are, of course, our condolences to the family and friends of these racers. Thanks for the thrills over the years, guys. But it's our sad duty, but it's an important duty to remember these folks. With that, the show does come to a wrap. John, any final thoughts from you before we say farewell?
Well, it was great having Alex Taylor with us tonight. She was really a live wire, man. She went wall to wall.
Yep.
And everything that she's done and everything that she's doing right now and will do in the future is just totally great. She has a very bright future, and I'm happy for her. I'm just glad that Kay got her to come on the show tonight.
She was terrific. Yeah, you can tell, she's definitely got that smoothness, the media presentation style, great storyteller. And obviously he's got the goods with regard to the technical know-how and actually doing it. And that's, you got presenters and show persons, and you have people who actually are, know what they're talking about and can make it happen. So really, really awesome to have Alex with us tonight. That was great. Well, let's say a farewell then, folks, for this week. We do want to thank Alex Taylor for coming on. She was terrific. She just bought a new house, so congrats to her. And she went out and jumped in the car right after walking through the house. So we appreciate her coming to us under those circumstances. Of course, my brother John Bachman with great stuff as always. Kate Turkelson, our producer extraordinaire, who was just, like I say, burning up the phone lines and doing a great job. Rob McCabe keeping the Draglist up to date. Mel Bashore with the older cars, and the same thing on Draglist. And of course, thanks forever to Danny White, who man did so many things for so many years, and we have the Draglist to thank for him. We want to thank Jeff Gilder of Zeus Digital Marketing, Racers Reunion, and Wing D Media. Excuse me. Click the like, click the share here, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow this place. Maybe if we cross promote with Alex, we'll get 1 million new viewers. We've got to get some of that social media whiz bang stuff she does, man. I tell you what, I need me a supercar. Anyway, check it on draglist.com daily to see what's new, and accept my greetings for a fantastic week. Don't know who's coming next week, but we do intend to have shows throughout December. If we can't put a guest down, then we'll just let you know that we're going, and John will put up a cool poster saying catch you next time. But always fun to hang out with you guys and gals on a Monday night, as John always says. And thanks for doing it. Love you, man. And we'll see you next week sometime. All right. Adios, everyone. John.
Good night, folks.